Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content and also stay up to date on all of our upcoming guests. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform. So if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. On today's episode, we are excited to welcome Ned LeDoux. Now, Ned's journey began very early in life when he was 3 or 4, and he would jump on the drum set while his dad, Chris LeDoux, was sound checking. Now, over the years, he played in bands, and then in the late 90s, he actually joined his dad's band, the Western Underground. For years, he would play with them until his dad's passing in 2004. That is when things started to change, and over the years, he moved from behind the drums to in front of the microphone. And ever since, he has been building a career as a solo artist himself. So please enjoy our conversation with Ned LeDoux. To begin this journey, let's talk about the drums. I think I read that you were about 5 or 6 when you got your first drum kit. And so what do you remember from that time and just why you were pulled towards the drums?
Well, I remember seeing my dad play, and I was just a little tiny kid. I mean, shoot, might have been 3 or 4 years old, maybe. I just remember everybody was really a whole lot bigger than me.
Right.
But Dad was playing in a bus barn back behind the high school. And of course, this was before all the success came. You know, he was just kind of playing wherever. And I just remember there's a lot of people in there, and it seemed to sound good, and people were having fun. And but I would get up during sound checks and play his drummer's kit, and his drummer at the time was a great guy, and he kind of showed me the basics on how to play the kick, snare, and hat, and I kind of picked up on it fairly quick. I mean, it was no expert right off the bat, but yeah, my folks got me a used drum kit from a family friend, and I just took to them immediately. I don't know what it was, the sound of them, the look of them, and I was just bitten by the beat, and just kind of, and I wasn't taking lessons at the time. I was just trying to figure it out on my own. But then eventually, I think my folks could tell that I really wanted to learn. And so they did find a drum teacher in Casper, Wyoming.
Okay.
And bless my mom's heart, she drove me in there every Saturday for about 1.5 years. And round trip, it's about, 130 miles, maybe 140 miles. Yeah, we do that every Saturday.
Wow.
And so I'd like to think it kind of paid off, because I went on to play for a couple of bands around Wyoming. Then I joined up with my dad and in '98 and played with him, for the rest of his life. And then continued on after that. So
yeah, exactly. And your dad, of course, was a big influence, but I've heard you talk about your mom and her being sort of your main influence along this journey. And so talk about her a bit and what she has meant to this point of your life, and not only the musician that you are, but just the person that you are.
Yeah. Dad taught me a lot, working on the ranch, and I followed my granddad around almost every day, building fence and haying and working cows. But yeah, it's just the things that a mom teaches you, just how to be a good person, and, taught us all, a great work ethic, and never forget where you came from was very important, and live by that golden rule. If you can do that, then you're in a pretty good spot. But, my mom has always been like a teacher, a coach, and just a great friend. And she's an angel, that's for sure.
And now on the work ethic side of things and the hard worker that you are, without your granddad, do you think you would have that work ethic within you at this point in your life, or was he a big part of instilling that within you?
Yeah, boy, I don't know. I mean, I remember one summer we had to build a new stretch of fence, and it was probably a mile and a half, maybe a couple miles long, and it was me and my older brother was helping him out. And yeah, Granddad would wake us up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock every morning, and like, God, geez, we gotta go do this again. And at the time, you didn't really like it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to play my drums. I want to go to town and do something. But you look back on it and you appreciate it. You're glad you did that, and you get to spend time with your granddad, and you learn something from it. And I think it just makes you for a better person, in that way, that work ethic. And now it's probably been 25 years, or shoot, it's probably been about 30 years ago since we put that fence up, and it's still,
wow,
it's still there, and nothing's got through it. So it's pretty neat to look back on that.
Yeah. Is it a reminder every time you go home? Like when you look at it, does it just bring those memories flowing back to you every time you see that fence?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And not just that stretch of fence, but, a lot of different things around there that the whole family, pitched in. And my dad built a barn years ago. And that was something that all of us kids helped out with. And, with the heavy lifting, then there are some points where he'd just be like staring up at the thing and goes, well, why don't you guys go ahead and go do something else? I got some thinking to do. I've got to figure out how to do this little corner or whatever, but
right.
But yeah, it's neat to get back there and see Mom and the rest of the family and just kind of reflect on everything that we were involved with.
Right. And now your dad, of course, is a big part to your journey. Now, for people who don't know who he was the 1976 world champion bareback rider before he actually made his way fully into music. And on that rodeo side of things, I believe he retired in 1980 when I think you were about 3 or 4 at that point. So maybe you didn't really see all that much of that side of him, but I did see a photo or a video, I'm not sure what it was, that he had a little bucking apparatus that he made at home that was kind of rope. You pulled the rope and it bucked and you were riding on that. And so on the rodeo side of things, was that an influence for you growing up? Were you ever drawn to that as something that you wanted to do at any point in your life, or has it always been the music that has drawn you?
It's always been the music. I'm, of course, a big fan of rodeo. I mean, it's the number one sport on dirt. But yeah, that little bucking machine thing, it was made out of fiberglass, and yeah, Dad made it. I think it was just for us kids if we, I don't know, wanted to get interested in, riding bucking horses or something. But
right.
Yeah, and I wish I could remember when Dad was rodeoing. I just have these blurry memories of him riding. But my mom she's got a great story about when Dad was at Cheyenne, and I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and Dad, he made a great ride, but he didn't get off on the pickup man. He just kind of bailed off.
Oh, okay.
And we were sitting somewhere behind the bucking chutes, and I was sitting next to Mom, I guess. And as soon as Dad got off the horse, they're clapping, and Mom looks down to where I should be sitting, but I wasn't there. And so she's panicking, and next thing she knows, she sees this little boy running out into the arena and helping her dad. And I was just there to help my dad up off the ground. So yeah, I can't remember that, but
oh wow.
But yeah, just all the rodeo stories, my dad being a world champ, and my little brother Bo rode bareback horses for a number of years and did a great job at it. And so when it comes to the songwriting, even though I didn't rodeo myself, just being in that rodeo ranch and family, it's definitely going to reflect in the songs that I write.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Cheyenne, the rodeo you were at in that story, and now you had the chance to play with Garth Brooks, who was a good friend of your dad, at the 125th anniversary of Cheyenne Frontier Days. And that was 25 years after your dad had played there with Garth. I think I have all those dates, right? There's a lot of dates in there, but Within that event, that was July of last year. Now, what did that mean for you in a way of celebrating your dad, but also playing with Garth and seeing yourself and maybe a realization that this career, you are doing this. It's not just within your dad's shadow, sort of. It's you're stepping out on the stage and you're making your way in your own career. Is it pretty cool to see those two things combine, especially at that event?
Yeah. I mean, Cheyenne has meant so much to, well, just the state of Wyoming. You know, we always kind of considered it like the Grand Old Opry of the West, you know, because it's really like the biggest stage out there, you know?
Right.
And I know it meant a lot to Dad to play the main stage. And but yeah, it was 25 years ago. I think it was the 100th annual, and you know, Garth played there. And the little story behind that, I think they're expecting their second child, and Garth wore this beeper or something on his belt, and he asked Dad if him and his band could just kind of wait in the wings. He said, because if this beeper goes off, whether it's at the beginning of the show, in the middle of the show, wherever, I'm out of here.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the whole deal. But thankfully the beeper didn't go off. But anyway, since Dad was there, Garth said, why don't you come up and sing What You Gonna Do with the Cowboy with me? And so yeah, that was 25 years ago. And then 25 years later, 125th annual, to be asked to open the show for him is such an honor. And also Cheyenne put up a bronze statue of Dad,
Yeah.
which you can see from I-25. And it's just a neat place. And yeah, I love going back there as often as we can. But to play that with Garth, I don't know, it's hard to just explain it. Just to be on that stage with him, and he's such a great guy, and you know, he's done so much for the LeDoux family, and we do our best to show him the same love and respect back. So yeah, great friend.
That's amazing. And within your musical journey, when you started playing, was your first band Cowtown? Was that the first band that you played in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where'd you get that information?
I don't know. I read it or heard it in another interview.
Yeah, Cowtown. Yeah.
So what was that outfit? What were you just playing drums, or at that point had you started singing, or what was the context of that band?
Yeah, at that time, well, first of all, I never got into singing until maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Cowtown was the first band I joined, and it was a band that had been around, you know, for a few years, and just based out of Kaycee, Wyoming. And yeah, it was just made up of, you know, ranchers, and we had, I think, a school teacher on keyboards, and I would have been, I think I was just going into my freshman year or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But the parents and the teachers had this deal toward the end of the year. They called it casino day for all the students. So any student that had perfect attendance, or student of the month, or had all these academic, you know, achievements, got to get on the bus, you know, like an hour before school let out, and go down to the big town of Kaycee and play bingo and blackjack and whatever.
Oh, okay.
The secretary called out all these kids' names, and she called out my name. And I didn't have perfect attendance, and I wasn't student of the month. I mean, I was a good student, you know, I passed.
Right.
But I got on the bus and I asked her, I said, why'd you call my name? She goes, I got a favor to ask you. I said, all right. So we wheel down there, we walk into this room, and there's a band set up in the corner. And she kind of came up to me and said, well, they need a drummer. I said, oh, okay. So I wandered up there, and yeah, it was Mike Cruchett, Keaton Paulin, Mike Friedel, and like a utility guy. I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Ron.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, they said, yeah, you want to come up and jam a little bit? I said, sure. So that was the start of it. And I remember going home after it was over and telling Dad and Mom, say, hey, I'm in a band. And they were just, yeah, grinning from ear to ear. Like, really? Well, shoot, where is it? You know, I said, what's Cowtown? And Dad's like, oh yeah, I know those guys. So of course, me and then Kaycee, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So before that point, before stepping on stage that day, did you have a thought about music as something more, as something you might want to follow, as in something you might want to jump into a band with? Or did that experience really cement it for you?
Yeah, I dreamed of, joining a band. I remember laying in bed just asking the Lord, like, man, just make me a good drummer, put me in a band that plays all over the place, plays great music. That's all I ever wanted to do. And but I realized, figured out real quick, there's a big difference between sitting in my basement with my drums and playing to the radio to playing with real people.
Right.
Because when you're playing along with, headphones on and playing to whatever, you can drop a drumstick and just pick it up and, the music still plays, but if you skip a beat or you start too quick or you're dragging with a live band, it's a train wreck.
Right.
The drummer's got a pretty big responsibility back there.
And so how quickly did you learn that when you started playing with that band? Did you find yourself really becoming a better drummer as you played live?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They molded me into, being the best I could be. There's a lot of stuff you'll learn what not to do, I guess.
Right.
I feel like at the time I had a double kick pedal. And so, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what song it was. Maybe it's like a Merle Haggard song or something we were playing. And I threw in that like a double kick fill or something. And
okay.
the turned around and said, we don't need that in a Merle Haggard song. So, okay. Yeah. So I learned when to put that in and when not to. But really where I became, I think the best drummer I could possibly be was when I joined my dad's band.
Yeah.
I kind of thought I had it sort of figured out. And when he asked me to join his group, it's like, yeah, well, I know all your songs, yeah, shoot, this will be cool. Get on the road with Dad and Western Underground. And they're like, well, your tempo's kind of like in here. We want it to be as solid as possible. And you're playing way too dang loud and all this stuff. So I learned a lot from those guys.
And what was your thought when your dad asked you that?
The fact that he asked his own son to join his band, like, I didn't hesitate on my answer,
Okay.
When he asked me, he said, hey, well, KW, got in a car wreck and he's going to be okay, but he's going to be laid up for a few months. Would you like to come out and fill in for him? I just said, yeah. I said, I'm your man. Like, when do we leave?
Right.
But I think back on it quite often, just like, man, he could have easily found somebody in Nashville or someplace else, but he had the faith in me to do it, and pretty proud.
That's amazing. Now, you played with him from 98 until 2005 when he passed away. Now, at that point, when he passed, was there a moment in there where you weren't sure what was going to happen? You weren't sure if you wanted to follow music anymore, or was the passion so strong within you that you knew even at that point you were going to find something else?
Well, when we lost him in 2005, last show we played with him, it was in Kansas City for the American Royal Rodeo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You can't hurt that guy. It was just a weird time. And, but I knew that music has always been like therapy for me, in the good times and the bad, like just, there's a song for anything, and, but I got some great friends that live in South Dakota. Dustin Evans in the Good Times Band, Gary Snow on guitar, Tim Dietz on keyboards, and got to be really good friends with those guys over the years. They'd opened up a bunch of shows for Dad, and me and Dustin got to be really good friends. And he said, well, man, if your dad ever decides to, hang it up or maybe not play quite so many shows every year, I'd like for you to come out and play with me. And so we kind of made this pact, and then when Dad passed away, it might have been a couple of weeks later, Dustin calls me up and said, "Man, the job's yours if you want it." I said, "When's the next gig? I'll be there. I need to get back behind those drums." And just, I don't know. I don't want to say it made me feel better because, that emptiness will always be there. But, playing Dad's music and listening to it, and he left a pretty big footprint on country music and a lot of people's lives. So just proud to kind of carry on that tradition.
And when did you jump in front of the mic? When was the first time you sang, and how did it come about that you did it eventually, stepping out from behind the drums?
Let's see. It might have been like a Western. Well, actually, no, it was, I'll try to give you the short part of the story.
Sure.
So the first time I really sang in front of anybody was in a cheap motel room somewhere in Nebraska, I think. And I was playing drums for Dustin Evans at the time. And he had, we're sitting around this cheap room, and he's playing a few songs on his acoustic. Then he gets up and hands me the guitar. I said, "Here, Ned, why don't you play one of your dad's songs?" And I just held the guitar. I said, "I don't know how to sing. Are you kidding me?"
Right.
But I found something kind of cool about it. Like Dustin can take that guitar out and play anything, and people are sitting around listening and just like joining in, singing along. And so when I got home a few days later, I had this cheap guitar, this old acoustic, and I went down in my basement and started learning some of Dad's songs. And whether to sing around a cheap motel room or a campfire, and I found it kind of romantic in a way to be able to sit on your front porch and just sing to the birds, just something new to do. And
right.
And so the first time I ever got up in front of a crowd was at the Country Stampede in Manhattan, Kansas, a big old festival, country festival.
Right.
And it was the middle of the day, and it's just me and Dustin, and it was June of 05.
Oh, okay.
And, the promoter or whoever for the festival asked me and Dustin if we would get up and just sing a couple of songs of Dad's, just to pay tribute to him. And I remember telling Dustin, like, I've never sang in front of anybody except for you in that dirty old motel room,
Right.
Well, here's your chance. I mean, there was probably 30,000 people out there,
Oh, wow.
And like I said, it was the middle of the day, so we could see everybody.
Right.
It wasn't dark outside. You can only see the first 15 rows or something. And of course, they got the jumbotrons, and so our face is up there, 20 feet high. And
oh, man.
It was a little nerve-wracking, but I guess,
I bet,
as they say, you got to start somewhere. And that was a hell of a place to start.
Wow. And growing up, like, did you ever sing around the house? Did your dad know you had any sort of voice within you?
No, Dad never did hear me sing.
Wow.
I think he heard me sing "The Devil Went Down to Georgia" when I was probably 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
He let me say that one line in there. He's like, "Yeah, go ahead and say it." But no, he's never heard me sing. I'm sure in a spiritual way, I feel like he's always up there with me. But
yeah,
I never wanted to get into this, up until maybe about 10 years ago. But if I'd have known it was going to be this fun, I probably would have started earlier. But I reckon, God has a plan for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. And now one of the moments, I don't know if it was the moment that set you on this path, was when your mom found a box of your dad's old songs that were sort of half finished and never recorded, and she gave it to you. Now, was that the point that set you on this journey of being a solo artist?
That was part of it. I mean, that really kind of started the songwriting.
Oh, okay.
But kind of leading up to that, I was playing solo gigs, and kind of how I got into playing solo gigs is I was playing in two different bands, playing drums for two different bands, and we would stay busy in the spring and all through the summer. But then as the winter rolled around, we wouldn't really do too much. but there's a lot of members in those bands that would go out and play a solo gig. And I was just thinking, man, that'd be kind of neat to be able to just throw your guitar in the back of the truck and just hit the road. And, you know, you're staying creative, you're still playing music, and you're also bringing home, you know, a little bit of grocery money, you know,
right.
instead of just sitting around the house wondering when the next gig's going to be. So yeah, when Mom found those ideas, you know, she sent me a few of them and thought maybe I could finish one of them. And she also sent some stuff to Dad's management. And so I was sitting around the house, and I'd never written a song before, you know, so I was kind of working on this stuff. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I added this and that.
Right.
Not even knowing if anybody would ever hear it. But then that's when McAnally came into play.
Mm-hmm.
Found out what I was, you know, working on, and invited me to his place. And this has probably been 7 years ago now.
Yeah, I think 2014, around 2014 is when you guys connected, I think.
Yeah, sounds about right. And so, yeah, we sat down together, and we just happened to be working on the same idea that Dad had started, something about a rusty pickup truck with posts and barbed wire and rolls on 4-ball tires. And there's firewood in the stack. I guess money's all we lack. That's about all we had to work with.
Okay.
But we knew the direction he was wanting to go, like live simple, you know, just appreciate what you have. And so the song that we finished, or what it came out to be, is We Ain't Got It All, which is on my first album.
Right.
From that point on, and just being able to sit with Mac, you know, he kind of opened up that door in my head on how to piece together phrases and lyrics and add melody with it. And then the songwriting just kind of took off after that, thanks to him.
And so meeting up with him, he worked with your dad on, I think, like the last 3 or 4 albums that your dad did. And so when you're meeting up with him and beginning to write with him and then stepping into the studio with him, what was that experience like for you, being such a new artist and not being exactly sure what your path as a singer, as a solo artist was going to be?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty lucky to be able to work with Mac. I mean, I consider him like the most wanted man in Nashville.
Right.
Because I'm sure everybody wants him to produce their stuff or write with them or have him play on their album. But he makes it look so easy, you know, and he rounds up the musicians to play on these albums, and they're some of the, you know, top shelf A-list players. And the cool thing about the players that played on my album, they also played on a lot of Dad's stuff.
Oh, nice.
Greg Morrow on drums, Glenn Worf on bass, JT Cornfloss, who we lost a few years ago, played on my second album. Also played on one of Dad's albums as well. But it's just a lot of fun to be in the studio with all those guys, and because they'll sit around, you know, between takes and tell old stories, and I just kind of sit there and listen and just soak it all in. It's like, man, these guys, what am I doing in this room with all these legends, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But they show so much respect, you know, and for the songs, and they do their best on everything. And I'm just so proud of what we've got to record and put out there. They just make it, like I said, make it so easy. And we probably talk more about where we're going to eat later that day than making a record, but
right.
Somehow a record's made and all that.
And now your dad's career was very organic. He started while he was in the rodeo, and he started basically selling the CDs at the rodeo, I believe, or it was maybe cassette tapes back then even. And then he had, like, I think 20 albums that he released independently before, like you talked about, that moment with Garth kind of sent him up, his trajectory up, and became sort of a national name. But it was very organic in the process. And now your career, are you taking that same approach? Like, it feels like stepping into the studio with these, you know, really well-known musicians and producers, you know, there could be a lot of anxiety tied to that as a newer artist, as someone who really just began singing. But are you more focused on just letting it flow organically and not getting too lost within the process of it?
Yeah, I try to keep it as grassroots as possible, and like the songs that I write, I'm just writing about what I know. I mean, whether they become a number one hit song, I mean, that'd be great, but it's kind of like the people that come to our shows, they're ranchers and farmers and, small town folks and, live out in the country. And we get the city folks that come in there as well. But that's what I aim for is, writing songs that they can relate to, but also kind of keeping, Dad's memory alive, because we always play his songs as well during the show. But yeah, like I said, it's just kind of a grassroots thing. I've kept everything in the family. Like my brother is the one who runs the merchandise and books all the flights, and he's out there on the road with us. And the band is like, I'll say, like the spirit of the Western Underground is still alive.
Right.
We've all been, this group has been together, since 89, 90.
Wow.
And so in my opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, we all know each other. We've been around each other for years and years, and they know the material, and they're just, I can't imagine, really at this point touring with a different group of guys, so they're just trying to keep it, all in the family and close friends. So I think that's the way Dad always did it as well.
That's amazing. And now, so within this journey, how important is it for you to toe that line of honoring your dad, but also having your own career and not getting stuck within almost being like a cover band of your dad's? How important is that for you to not leave your dad in the past and say, this is me, this is who I want to be, so focus on me, but to have those two sides of it?
Well, when I started playing solo gigs and stuff, I didn't have any of my own material. So I probably went a year and a half, just playing a lot of, and like my set list was all the old rodeo songs. I wasn't doing, Life's a Highway or What You Can Do with the Cowboy. I was doing the really old stuff from those records that he recorded all by himself. And
right.
But then eventually people would say, well, do you have any of your own songs? You've been writing your own? I said, well, no, I don't know how to write a song. At the time I didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just something I want to do as far as, playing Dad's materials, because people are going to come out and they want to hear, like This Cowboy's Hat or Western Skies. And I love playing those songs, but they're also going to hear kind of my side of the story.
Yeah.
And a lot of those songs relate very well with what Dad has done. I actually had a pretty cool dream a few years ago when I released my first album, Sagebrush. And there's a song on there called Forever a Cowboy. And, but in my dream, I was sitting at the breakfast table with Dad, and he had this old cassette player, he had the headphones on. And in my dream, I was thinking, I don't think I put out any cassettes, but anyway, but he had a cassette of Sagebrush in the player, and he got done listening to this song, Forever a Cowboy, and he took the headphones off and he looked at me, he said, that's a good song. I wish I would have recorded that. And so it's almost like in a spiritual way through this dream, he's kind of letting me know that you're doing good. I mean, you're writing songs that maybe I would have wrote, and so I'm just, proud to carry on the tradition.
That's amazing. And now coming into your newest album, Buckskin, you do have a song that Mac and your dad wrote way back in the day that kind of got, well, Mac wrote it, but he never gave it to your dad after all, because your dad came into the studio with the songs he wanted. And so Mac kind of tucked it back into his back pocket. And so what was it like to be able to record that song and honor your dad in that way?
Pretty amazing. I mean, I was in the kind of in the middle of writing, my own stuff, for the album, and I was pitching stuff back and forth with Mac, just kind of getting his any suggestions that he might have, and then just a random email showed up, and all it said was Upside of the Ground. I didn't have like a little message or anything like that, so I just pushed play, and And it seems like it was just Mac and acoustic. It's pretty stripped down track, but
Oh, okay.
man, this is cool. And before that, I didn't know the story behind it. And then Mac shared the story with me when we were in the studio, and just knowing that, it just makes it for an even better song, because it sounds so much like Dad, And Mac also wrote Horsepower, which I think if you were to play Upside of the Ground and Horsepower back to back, they're pretty similar. You can tell who wrote these songs,
Right.
McAnally. But yeah, it's a fun song to play. We've been doing it live now for a few months, and it's a mouthful. It moves along pretty quick, but man, it's a joy.
And now you have Rodeo Dreams. And did I see that your brother Clay is a co-writer on that song?
Yeah. It was cool to write with him. We were texting back and forth, and this would have been back in 2020. That's when I wrote all these songs for this album. But
oh, okay.
And we were just texting back and forth. He still lives in Wyoming, and he goes, "What have you been up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on some new songs for a new album." He goes, "Oh man, it'd be cool to write one with you someday." And I'd actually started the song Rodeo Dreams. I think I had a verse and part of a chorus. And I said, "Well, I'll send it to you, see what you can come up with." And it was like early the next day. He works for the highway department, and it was in the wintertime, so he was out plowing roads and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And he sent me a text like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just kind of rolled over and went through it. It's like, man, that's good. And so I added that to the song, and I texted him back, "Cause man, you ought to be writing songs. This is you might have a talent here." So it was a thrill to write a song with him, and maybe later down the road we'll do some more.
That's awesome. And the Buckskin Poem, which the album is named after, when did that come about? Did that come early? Was that sort of the thing that inspired the whole album, or did it come just as part of the writing process?
Well, it's a poem that I've been working on for, probably 2 or 3 years at least. And I've always been a big fan of cowboy poetry. I got to play the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada a couple of times, and got to hang out with, like Waddy Mitchell, Gary McMahon, Baxter Black, all those legendary cowboy poets, and just thought I'd try my hand at one. And, but yeah, the poem itself comes from, different articles that I read, Dad talking about, winning the bareback championship of the world, and the horse, and, everything leading up to that moment, fighting through injuries and things like that. And just him talking about the horse alone. The name of the horse is Stormy Weather, a big buckskin. And he said, nobody wanted to draw this horse. He said, and they use all these terms, those bareback riders, he's yank on your arm, he's heavy, and all this stuff. And
right.
And I just thought it would make for a good song. But the more I worked with it, I was like, it might be better off as like the spoken word, as a poem. And I added this kind of a eerie, melody behind it, instrumental type of thing. And yeah, and I've probably listened through it at least a dozen times or more. And it gets to a certain point in there and still gives me the chills, no matter how many times I listen to it.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then as far as like coming up with the title for an album, that's sometimes just as hard as the songwriting. You get everything done, recorded, and now you got to put a label on it. It's like, geez, what's it going to be? So this time came a little easier, because I had written this poem, got that done before I really dove into the songwriting for the rest of the stuff. And I just thought, yeah, buckskin. That's kind of unique and kind of sums it up in a way. But I didn't really, write all the songs around that title. It's just
right.
A variety of stuff. There's rodeo songs, there's cowboy stuff, ranching, and then there's just some fun songs where even though I wrote them, I'm not sure where they came from. It just sounded good. It was like, these might be fun to play live.
That's awesome. And you had the chance to debut the album at the Grand Old Opry. Now, what was that experience like? You talk about playing in Cheyenne and that sort of being an Opry style stage. But when it comes to the actual Opry, I mean, what does that mean within your journey, being able to play that stage and play it again because you were able to play there with your dad back in the day as well? So what does that stage mean to you?
Well, when you step into that circle, they got this chunk of wood carved out into a circle that came from the original Opry, the
Yeah.
Ryman. There's just something happens, and I can't describe it, but you just realize all the people that stood in that same spot, like Johnny Cash and Hank Sr., Marty Robbins, all those guys. And everything just kind of slows down, when you're on that stage. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people, waiting backstage to get on that stage to perform, and everything just kind of slowed down, like, wow, this is so. I've probably played a lot of stages in my life where I didn't really soak it in, as I should have. But yeah, I made sure to just walk a little slower, just really like take time looking at the pictures on the wall and meet people back there. Yeah, it's definitely a new feather in the hat. A pretty neat deal.
And so when you played with your dad, obviously you're behind the drums, but when you step up there as your own artist in the circle singing, was it a much different experience for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And just knowing, he stood in that same spot, over 20 years ago. Yeah, it was I don't know. I can't describe it. I get chills just thinking about it, but yeah, I'll never forget it. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And now I think I saw a post. Well, I saw a post on your Instagram. You had basically the opening of the new CD. I think it might have been for Buckskin.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, just, the emotion that it pulls from you. And you were talking about smelling the booklet and just that unique smell. And then I also saw you talk about back when you were a kid and when your dad's album would come out on cassette and the family would sort of play it over and over. And so I just wanted to talk to you about those two experiences. Are they similar experiences from when you were a kid and getting your dad's cassettes to now getting your own CDs?
Yeah, there's just something fun about it. I mean, I just remember when we were kids, the closest record store was over an hour away. So if you're going to make a trip to town, to get, cassettes of your favorite bands, you make a list just so you don't forget.
Right. Yeah.
So we would go to town and we'd go straight to the record store. And at the time there was like 3 or 4 record shops in the East Ridge Mall in Casper. And so, yeah, we go through and we get what we went there to get. And then we get back in the truck, and my brother, he started driving before we did, so he got to listen to his stuff first, but in the meantime, we'd be taking the shrink wrap off, and, you just smell everything in there, and you're reading the liner notes and thank yous and looking at the pictures. And, and I know like these days, streaming is a big deal, and it's easy to do. I mean, I do it myself, but there's just something kind of magical about getting the physical product in the mail or going to the town and finding one. And just, to have it in your hand and look at the pictures and things like that you can't get from streaming. And I also tell people that, hey, I can't sign a digital copy. So we always carry CDs, at the merch table. But yeah, I remember listening to Dad's stuff, when it would first come out. And a lot of times we would go to town, and it was just neat to see, his face with everybody else, and that was. And I remember one thing we used to do is, they'd have the big display of all the CDs or cassettes. And so before we'd leave the store, we'd take all of Dad's and put them like on the very front, cover the whole shelf with just his stuff. And I don't know, that's probably shouldn't have said that, but
that's awesome.
Not a whole lot of record shops out there anymore, but we made sure that, people going in there, they're going to see Dad's face.
Yeah, definitely. And so within this journey with your third album release, like I say, Buckskin is the name of it. as you look at your journey, sort of what is the view? What are the feelings? What are the emotions that you have now that you are sort of deep into this artist journey and it's happening? And maybe, 10 years ago, you didn't even have a thought about an artist journey. How do you feel about it now?
Well, I'm still amazed the places that we've got to play, and the show and the stages we've got to share with, like with Garth and Toby Keith and, a lot of different Texas groups and Corb. It's just amazing. It hasn't changed me. I hope, I'm still a drummer at heart, even though I got all my drums in the garage in their cases, and I'll go down there, 2 or 3 times a week and just have a conversation with them.
Let them know you haven't forgotten about them.
Yeah, like, I know I beat the hell out of you guys for years, and now it's time to just take a break. Maybe I'll take you out and just play once in a while. But yeah, it's just been an amazing journey. And the fact that it hasn't really been going on that long, really, but just the places that we got to play and all, it just seems like it's flown by, getting to play the Grand Ole Opry in Cheyenne a number of times and being nominated for different awards and winning a few of them. And boy, I don't know. I could have never dreamt this would happen, like you said, 10 years ago or more. But boy, we're having a ball.
Thank you so much once again for joining us, and thank you to Ned for stopping by and sharing his story. Be sure to check out his new album, Buckskin, wherever you stream, or also check out the CD. Please also be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content and also stay up to date on all our upcoming guests. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform, of course. So if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. Thanks once again so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.